Hello there, thank you for joining me for That's the Way It Is. I'm your host, BC. Today I'm going to talk a little story. It could be, you could look at it as encouragement, but quite a few years ago, probably about maybe 13 years ago, I went to an establishment and because they advertised they were taking applications. Well, I wanted to work for this place. Well, when I went in and I asked, could I apply for a job? The store manager at that time said, we're not taking any more applications. Come on. He's like, I'm sorry, we're not taking any more. Okay, so, and then he walked off. Excuse me. Well, this lady walks up, and I asked her, I said, where are they filling out applications? She told me, she said, well, you go through those double doors, you take a left, you're going to go down, you're going to find another door that's going to be on your first left. So guess what I did? I went on in there. When I went in there, someone handed me an application. I filled it out, and I sat there. Well, excuse me. Well, I waited and waited because the guy that handed me the application, he had walked out. Well, I went to the door, excuse me, the one I came in, and I looked around and I saw this other lady, and her badge said, she was a form of management. Excuse me. So I handed her my application, and she looked over it, and she said, excuse me, when can you start? I told her, I said, I can start today. So what she did, me and her walked down the hallway, and there was a chair there on my right. Excuse me. And she told me, she said, well, sit down in that chair right there. So I sit in that chair, and she went to what was called the manager's office. And how I knew that, because they had a little sign up there. Well, she goes in there, and I'm waiting out there for about 20 minutes or so. Just sitting there, and I'm watching people go by me and everything. And anyway, the lady pops out, and she says, can you come in, please? I said, yes, ma'am. So I get up and I go in there, and guess who's in there? There's two gentlemen in there. A third one ended up coming in there, but there's two gentlemen in there, and one of them was the guy I talked to. Excuse me. So that was a little awkward. Anyway, so they asked me some questions, and I'm answering their questions, and as truthful as can be. And they told me, they said, well, can you come back next week? And I said, yeah. And what had happened was, this lady was impressed with my application and impressed with my resume. So she wanted to give me a job working with her in her department. Well, what it turned out is, as time went on, I never did make it into her department of work because they gave me a department of my own. So I thought that was cool. Now, it got to the point where, they was looking for people to promote. So I put in my, my notice I wanted to be promoted. Well, out of like 130 some people, it was interviewed. And, I go up to, at the time, the district manager, and he calls me in his office because he's going to interview me. And he asked me, he says, look, I'm going to ask you one question. He said, I want you to answer it as truthful as possible. I said, of course. He said, in 5 years, where are you planning on being? I said, I'm sorry, sir, but you're sitting in my chair. He looked at me, he's like, I like that answer. He said, is that your final answer? I said, yes, sir. He said, let me ask you this. He said, why'd you answer my question like that? I said, well, I look at it two ways. Number one, I come to work for money. The more money, the only way I'm gonna make more money is to be promoted. I said, and I look at it like this. Two ways you can look at it. He said, how's that? I said, you can either move on up to, and I'll follow right behind you, or you can just get out of my way. I tell you what, me and that guy, we had a great relationship after that, as far as working ethic. Excuse me. He took me under his wing, and he had taught me things, and he even backed me up when I got into it, because he said, and what he done, he sent me to other places to better improve them. So, excuse me. Anyway, so I was and just getting back to that, I was at just to prove how close we were. I got into it with I guess you could say city zoning, whatever, for one of the establishments we was working on. And I said, what they're wanting us to do, yeah, going by that floor plan is not going to work. I said, it's obvious it's not going to work. Excuse me. And I told them, look, and I did it the way I thought it would work. And the guy comes in there, he's like, this isn't per the specs, it's not per the floor plan. I said, your floor plan is not going to work. I measured everything off and showed him how they wanted everything and everything like that. And he said, but what you done wasn't approved. I said, of course it was. I approved it. That's why I did it. Alright, so, excuse me, they get in touch with the district manager. District manager calls me, you know, and I'm over there and I'm talking to him on the phone. And he said, look, Billy, he said, I'll be down there. He said, I'll be down there tomorrow. He said, well, I'm going to look at it. Alright, so he comes in there and he's like, he said, I can't believe you're arguing with these people. I said, but what they said is not going to work. He said, convince me. He said, Billy, he said, BC, I gave you this here position. He said, and I wanted you to follow directions. He said, but you need to prove to me what you're saying. So, got out tape measure and got out some chalk. And said, okay, they want this here, this here, this here, this here. Now, how you going to unload a truck? Now, he's looking at the dock doors. Excuse me. He's looking where I'm looking. I said, no cool. I said, the coolers are not going to last long. Excuse me. And he looked at it. He said, you know what? You're right. He said, we're going to make the adjustments now. You know, but getting back to my point is that you cannot ever give up. You know, those of you that are out there and you're fighting for a job and you're looking for a job, don't give up. Go that extra mile. I even heard of someone one time taking a candy bar and putting their resume under the wrapper, or no, using the wrapper as their resume of the candy bar. Sometimes you may have to be creative, and sometimes you may have to take a leap of faith. Excuse me. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. Some people will really react to that. That store manager, when I was promoted, and I was promoted, he took me around and he said, you know, I'm going to take you, he said, I'm going to show you a few things. And he took me and this other guy. Excuse me. This other guy had already been promoted. And he said, all right, I see this right here. And, you know, he started asking us questions. He's like, this right here. He said, what's wrong with this picture? And you know, that guy that was promoted, excuse me, he could not answer that picture. I mean, answer that question. But I answered it correctly. Every question that he asked me, I answered correctly. The thing of it is, I did not give him the answer he wanted. Well, answer that, excuse me, well, I guess what you could say is a company answer. I gave him what was truth. Excuse me. Just like the department I was given, I didn't do what home office wanted me to do. I done what was right for the area. Excuse me. And that's what, and sometimes that's what you have to do. Now, come to find out that when we did it my way, that department made money. Now, when we did it what the company wanted, the department didn't make hardly anything. I mean, it didn't make nothing of what it was making. So sometimes you have to go above and beyond, and sometimes you just gonna have to put your thinking cap on. Now, if you can't think, I'm sorry for you. There's really, I really don't have any advice for you other than to maybe talk to someone to maybe get an idea from them. But mostly everybody can think. Everybody can come up with something. So I'd like to thank you for joining me. You have a wonderful day, and to remember to go that extra mile. Excuse me. Show creativity, and you'll have stories of your own. Thank you for joining me.